Hello, I'm Nancy Godi Angonihu with the news on NTA International. First, the headlines. Supreme Court nullifies the election of Bayelsa State Governor-elect. Nigeria marks World Radio Day with focus on impact. EFCC targets youths on corruption fight ahead of sensitization walk. Let's take off with electoral matters. The Supreme Court has ordered the withdrawal of the certificate of return issued to All Progressives Congress candidate David Leon, who polled the highest votes cast in the governorship election in Bayelsa State. The five-man panel of justices led by Justice Mary Odili gave the judgment in an appeal before it by the People's Democratic Party, PDP. Dele Atumbi reports.
The appeal arose from a pre-election matter where the PDP challenged the running mate of the APC candidate David Leon for supplying false information to the Independent National Electoral Commission in his Form CF001 containing his biodata. The issue bordered on the differences in the certificate of Leon's running mate, which had about 10 different names. Though the APC candidate's running mate in the election in an affidavit affirmed that the certificates bearing different names belonged to him, the trial court nullified his candidature. The APC appealed this verdict at the Court of Appeal, where the appellate court nullified the verdict of the trial court. This necessitated the PDP to approach the Supreme Court, where counsel to the appellant pleaded with the court to uphold its appeal, while counsel to the respondents urged the court to dismiss the appeal. In the judgment delivered by Justice Ejembi Eko, the five-man panel of justices led by Justice Mary Odili agreed with the judgment of the trial court and set aside the verdict of the lower court. The court pointed out that mere affidavit on the issue of names in a certificate was not enough until it is uttered by the issuing authority. Relying on Section 31, subsection 6 of the Electoral Act, the Apex Court affirmed that since the election of the governor-elect and his deputy is a joint ticket, it voided the joint ticket of both candidates. In a consequential order, the Supreme Court ordered INEC to withdraw the certificate of return issued to David Leon of the APC and issue a certificate of return to the candidate and the party that scored the second highest votes in the governorship election conducted in Bayelsa State on November 16, 2019.
Justice has been done. We thank Almighty God that we have justices that the world is proud of.
With this verdict, the candidate that polled the second highest votes cast in the election will be sworn in on Friday, February 14, 2020. In Abuja, Dele Atumbi, NTA News.
And in reaction, APC National Chairman Adams Oshomole says Supreme Court judgment on Bayelsa State lacks fruit of justice and that no one apart from APC candidate is qualified to take office out of office tomorrow in Bayelsa State. He said the party's lawyers have been mandated to explore all legal means to review the Supreme Court judgment.
As a political party, we respect the rule of law, and we respect and we have confidence in the judiciary. However, this judgment obviously lacked the fruits of justice. For me and for our party, at the heart of election is the issue of who did the people actually voted for. Is there a case of impersonation on the part of the deputy governor-elect? Is there any other person who had turned up to claim that name as to raise doubt as to whether or not this was the deputy governor-elect duly elected along with the governor during the Bayelsa governorship election? Now, where justice and democracy is sacrificed on the altar of technicalities, this for me constitutes a grave danger to our democracy. If, as the Supreme Court has ruled, David Leon cannot now be sworn in as governor, and the person who has the highest number of votes and a spread be sworn in, it simply means that from tomorrow there will be no government in Bayelsa State. Because as far as we know, the next candidate, because these fights are before courts, who happen to be a PDP candidate, does not have 1/4 of the total lawful vote cast. In that 1/4 of the votes of the vote cast in that election, in 2/3 of the 8 local governments in Bayelsa State.
That's Adams Oshomole, the national chairman of the APC. They are reacting to the Supreme Court judgment on Bayelsa State. More from the courts. The publisher of Sahara Reporters, Omoyele Sowore and Olawale Bakare, have been rearraigned before a federal high court in Abuja on an amended 2-count charge bordering on treasonable felony. The 2 defendants pleaded not guilty to the charge filed by the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation.
At the resumed trial, the prosecution counsel, Ali Lukayode, informed the court that the federal government has complied with the court's orders over the payment of the 200,000 naira awarded the defendant as cost. He also said the prosecution is ready to proceed with the trial, but the defense counsel, Abdul Mahmood, objected on the grounds that the prosecution has served them only the summary of the witnesses' statements and insisted on being served with the full statements, even though the prosecution maintained it was a full text that was served. The defense counsel also insisted that since Showore's statement is on video, the transcript is not enough. He said the video will equally be needed to enable them prepare their defense. Justice Ijoma Ojukwu adjourned the case to 11th, 12th, and 13th of March for definite trial.
Time to look at communication and its impact. Advocacy for community radio as a tool for development and fostering global peace and unity is the focus of this year's World Radio Day. Adebola Brookslyn Sunday in this report takes a look at the impact and relevance of radio to the societal development.
Abuja's very own anti-world.
Information is said to be power, and radio is one of the media of information dissemination. 38-year-old Emmanuel Ogbodo is an interior decorator. He does not miss the news on the top of the hour and follows scheduled programs. He told me it is a motivational tool for his business.
When you're not listening to the radio, you are like a blind man. But when you listen to the radio, we know what is happening. It makes my work go faster. I feel happy.
It's now 3 minutes for the top of the hour.
Depth of penetration of radio gives it an edge over other media, an advantage the United Nations wants operators and governments at all levels to take advantage of.
As we strive to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and tackle the climate crisis, radio has a key role to play as a source of information and inspiration alike.
Especially the content.
Nathan Williams, an editor and reporter, says his station focuses more on developmental programs.
So we give them the voice so that they speak out and let the government know what they need.
Dr. Mansour Liman, Director General, Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, FRCN, says even in today's world of digital communication, radio still reaches more people than any other platform.
It is the most accessible thing that you can put on. Within seconds, you start listening to what is happening. And
Dr. Liman believes that the Nigerian government must invest more in radio infrastructure to enable it to reach all parts of the country.
Technology has moved so fast that the kind of shortwave transmitters that are being produced now are very different from the ones that we used to have in the 60s. So there is the need to make sure that we procure new ones.
Another advantage of radio is that it is an interactive platform where people can air their views, concerns, and grievances. I hope you now see the idea of listening to news and other programs on the radio. Happy World Radio Day. Adebola Brookslyn Sunday, NTA News.
Indeed, Adebola, we see the need. I'm being now joined in the studio by the Director General, Voice of Nigeria, VOA, Mr. Osita Okechukwu, to speak on the significance of World Radio Day. And I thank you, Mr. Okechukwu, for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Now,
Radio
in line with the theme, radio and diversity, to what extent would you say radio as a medium of communication has lived up to expectations in terms of world peace and development?
Radio had remained one of the greatest inventions of the last 100 years for the impacts it has played globally. It is still top of the burner of all the broadcast systems we know. One, it could reach every nook and crannies. Secondly, it had no language limitation. Thirdly, even if you're a passerby, you will know what is going on. And you can also listen to radio without batteries or electricity. So unlike other medium, radio offers itself as the widest and even the cheapest. Cheapest in the sense that since 1895, when Mr. Marconi ventured into wireless transmission, and in 1906, when Mr. Fessenden sang the Christmas Carol to the bewilderment of all those who were on board the same ship with him. And in 1920, exactly 100 years this year, when Dr. Frank Conrad did the proper transmission that covered a wide area, it had remained the same, that today we're on shortwave. You have shortwave, you have the FM, you have the medium wave, which gives a lot of spectrum for wide audience.
Thank you, Mr. Okechukwu. You just said that radio has a wide audience. How would you now assess the impact of radio communication in Nigeria?
It's been very tremendous in Nigeria. It had expanded not only the political news, but also entertainment and music. When we talk of Nollywood, don't forget, the plays we know today started by the radio before the television came into the country. And it has remained so, especially in the rural areas where you do not have most people do not have access to television. Radio remained what it is. For us, like a Voice of Nigeria, we also transmit wider distances that cover all the continents of the world. And in radio, you have many languages you can, at the same time, beam to your large audience. We, in Voice of Nigeria, we go with the English, French, Fulfulde, Arabic, Igbo, Hausa, English, and other languages. We're even heading to the Chinese. And it's also pertinent to note that, like BBC had done, BBC is now on Pidgin English. So it is unlimited penetration of a wider audience. That's radio for you.
Radio actually reaching everywhere, everybody. Do you agree that radio is distracting because people are often engaged in some activities while listening to radio?
Yes, that's what the radio has as a peculiar advantage. If you are, for instance, going to the social media, you cannot do another thing. But radio, you could be doing what you're actually doing. You can be reading and listening to music or even news. That's what radio do not distract as much as other media.
And because I see people listen to radio while they are driving.
That's why you have the FM in most cars, you know, because it doesn't distract much.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
Mr. Okechukwu,
Thank you.
Director General, Voice of Nigeria. Thank you for speaking to us on NTA International. Moving on, now education is the next port of call. Following concerted efforts over the years to improve the standard of education in Nigeria, the federal government has now laid a solid foundation that will ensure that attainment of sustainable development goals in the country education sector is achieved. This was the response of the Education Minister Adamu during a two-day oversight by the House of Representatives Committee on Basic Education. National Assembly correspondent Abdullahi Adamu reports.
The Federal Ministry of Education was the first port of call by the committee members on the utilization of 2019 appropriation and focus of the basic education in the 2020 budget. Education Minister Adamu advocated legislative support for states and local governments to fully complement the federal government's drive to revive the sector, enforcement of the law on the children's right to education, and provision of quality teacher training mechanism.
There is necessity for us to declare emergency in basic education in this country. And it has to be done either at the National Economic Council or at least in the National Council of States, so that it becomes binding on governors.
It was very clear that the priorities that the committee had set for itself were exactly the same that the ministry had set. So we had a very smooth and flawless engagement.
At the National Commission for Mass Literacy, Adult and Non-Formal Education, the members asked for financial report on the balance of personnel cost in the 2019 appropriation and commended the upgrading project of the National Institute for Mass Literacy in Kano State. The Director, National Mathematical Center, Professor Stephen Onu, seeks the review of the act establishing the center in line with contemporary standards and addresses the exclusion of the center from the TED Fund intervention program. The members were briefed by the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Educational Research Center, Professor Ismail Junaidu, on the completion of the review project of the primary and secondary education curriculum with a view to provide qualitative education in the country. In Abuja, Abdullahi Aminu, NTA News.
And now to deepen the fight on corruption, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has gone into collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Youth and Sports Development and the National Youth Service Corps in furtherance of the need to bring more youths on board in its fight against corruption. This will take the form of a youth walk against corruption on the 14th of February across the country. Haman Jabani reports on this walk against corruption.
Three organizations are meeting officially for the first time under this kind of atmosphere. And it is not a social gathering, but one which is believed will tackle corruption and galvanize the energy and resourcefulness of the youth to prevent corruption in all sectors of the country. While the Ministry of Youth and Social Development and the National Youth Service Corps are known to have access to the targeted population, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has the machinery and expertise that will make the collaboration a perfect one.
One of the best strategies is to mobilize everybody to take ownership of the fight against corruption. It should not be left to the government or the anti-corruption agencies to fight alone. So that now this one is going to be Nigerian youth work against corruption.
This move begins with the presence of these organs of government in a maiden youth walk against corruption on the 14th of February 2020 across the country, to sensitize the public on the fight against corruption and financial crimes, as well as to be crusaders, ambassadors, and advocates.
The new perspective we are exploring is the awakening and mobilization of youth in our nation to the task of exposing, confronting, and tackling the scourge of corruption.
The youth work against corruption will involve women and labor groups, NGOs, and the general public. Hamad Jabani, NTA News.
You're watching the news on NTA International. Thank you for staying with us. The Senate has described the recent attack on Auno community in Borno State, where 30 persons were killed by gunmen, as despicable. This followed a motion of notice on urgent public importance, which called on the Senate to condemn the attack, urging the federal government to begin the process of rehabilitation of the affected community, as it called on the military authority to establish a base in Auno so as to intensify its security operations effectively and to immediately carry out an investigation on the circumstances surrounding the killings. The motion also urged the federal government through the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, and the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management to provide relief materials to the families of those affected. President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, however, reminded his colleagues that the consultations between the Senate and the executive arm of government with regard to security challenges in the country will be fruitful. The Senate passed 6 bills through first reading. These include the bill that seeks to prohibit discrimination between first degrees and higher national diplomas. Still staying with the National Assembly, the House of Representatives has urged the federal government to review the privatization of the power sector as the performance of DISCOs has fallen short of expectations. House members, in their contributions during the debate on the matter put forth by Representative Nolim Naji, expressed disappointment that in spite of federal government's effort at improving power generation, the distribution companies have shown lack of capacity in transmission. The lawmakers also adopted a motion from Bello Yakubu urging the National Universities Commission, NUC, to publish the names of identified fake professors in some national or Nigerian universities. In the meantime, 2 House members, Kingsley Chima and Pascal Dozier from Imo State, have defected from Action Alliance to the All Progressives Congress, APC. Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila announced their decision at plenary Thursday. Details will be coming to you in our subsequent bulletins. Away from Nigeria's legislature, advancement in ICT and other means of communication seems to have made the post office obsolete. But the Nigerian Postal Service is disputing this perception as it is repackaging to stage a comeback that will make its services compelling. The Postmaster General of the Federation is setting this in motion with a visit to the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, to seek partnership. Olainka Ojo reports.
The post office used to be one of the most relevant institutions in many parts of the world. British postal system came to Nigeria in 1852 and remained a major driver of social and economic sectors until the mid-80s, when it began to wane due to advancement in technology. At present, many don't even know what it is.
I can't really recall because I don't even know whether the post office exists.
Like 10 years.
Post office. I've never been to a post office before.
That is about to change as the Nigerian Postal Service is poised to have a say in government's drive to achieve digital economy, particularly at the grassroots. Already, the Postmaster General is on his feet seeking collaboration with the Nigerian Television Authority.
One of the most important milestones that we are also going to enter is the setting up of a postal service bank. We are also setting up a transport and logistic company, which will also complement what we are doing.
Director General NTA Yakubu Ibn Muhammad is poised to point out that NTA is the right place to go to when carrying out any national policy that will promote economic, social, political, and above all, unity and peace in Nigeria. NTA, he says, will inform and educate the public on the fact that NIPOS services goes beyond selling of stamps and sending letters.
We will work with you in NIPOS, to make sure that the narrative about NIPOS and other institutions in this country are changed.
The visit also created an avenue for NTA and NIPOS to restate commitments to poverty alleviation through the promotion of digital economy. Olainka Ojo, NTA News.
Today is the 44th anniversary of the assassination of Nigeria's former military head of state, General Murtala Muhammad. He was assassinated on February 13, 1976, on his way to work during an abortive coup. He was born on November 8, 1938, and died on February 13, 1976. He was the head of the federal military government of Nigeria from 1975 until his assassination in 1976. As head of state, Mohammed put in place plans to build a new federal capital territory in Abuja to decongest Lagos. He created 7 more states in February 1976, bringing the total number of states in Nigeria to 19. President Muhammadu Buhari condoles with the family, friends, and all lovers of vintage high-life music as played by Dr. Victor Abimbola Olaiya, who passed on at 89. The president, in a statement, notes that the high-life maestro, known for his mastery of the trumpet, brought joy and delight to people across generations with his songs, which were both entertaining and didactic. President Buhari added that his place in history is guaranteed. He sang not just for entertainment value, but also taught critical lessons on life, good neighborliness, and national cohesion. He urges the younger generation of musicians to learn a lesson from Olaiya so that their songs can also remain evergreen and outlive them, noting that the departed musicians' work transcends Nigeria, the West Coast, and indeed the African continent. The president prays God to rest Olaiya's soul and comfort all those who mourn him. And that's it on the news at this time. Thank you for watching.